This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Maximus. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, getting down to the details to shed technical debt.
When we can get like a specific network component off, when we can divest of an individual card, right, we can then take that level of effort that we were investing in the sustainment of that and roll that now into modernization. And we've done that in many cases.
Colonel Jeffrey Strauss of DISA on FedGov Today in just a moment. Uniting program strategy, advanced technology, process, and execution for a more efficient government. That's Maximus. Every program, every service, every time. That's innovation forward. Learn more at maximus.com/federal. One of the biggest tasks for the Defense Information Systems Agency is paying down the technical debt the Defense Department's rung up over time. Colonel Jeffrey Strauss, U.S. Army, Deputy for Programs at DISA, told me about that at the AFCEA DC lunch discussion I hosted a couple of weeks ago. At TechNet Cyber in Baltimore recently, I asked Colonel Strauss for more detail on technical debt.
When we were on the panel at AFCEA DC a couple of weeks ago, we talked about technical debt. Why is it so important to you? That's your North Star, as you described to me. Why is that? And what are the ways that you found to effectively retire the technical debt that you're going after?
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for having me, Francis. And it is an important question. It's one I think about a lot. And the reason that technical debt is so important to us to address at the Defense Information Systems Agency is just like debt in our personal lives, it doesn't stop accruing. And eventually that debt gets to a place where all I am is paying interest and I'm not getting after the principal, right? And so technical debt is our barrier to modernization in many cases. As our resources, our time, our energy, our finances are directed towards sustaining technologies that are critical but not modern and where we want to be, it detracts from the amount of resources we have to apply towards new and modern solutions like the ones that were being presented here at TechNet.
What's the industry's role in helping you with the technical debt piece of it before you get to the modernization piece?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the opportunity to talk this morning on another panel with industry, and here's what I shared with industry, right? I said there's a couple of forms of business development, right? And everyone's here trying to do business development. And I said, there's good business development, and then there's, bad, not so good business development, right? And I said, good business development does three things for me. It understands my global problem, the big problem we're trying to solve. I'm a program manager by trade, not a technologist. But second thing it does is understands my specific problem. And the third thing it does is gives me an actionable solution in order to solve that problem. And so what I challenged industry today to do is, in the department, because of the size of the technical debt that we've accrued, just like I will be able to pay off my student loan with one big check, right? I have to make incremental progress towards that. And so what I've asked industry for is help us think about tech debt in terms of incremental improvements. Piloting of solutions, modular approaches. We cannot rip out the whole DoD network and start afresh, right? And we have to build. And one of the challenges that we see with a lot of the technology is the commercial sector is driving this technology much faster pace, and they do have that flexibility to start greenfield, right? Where we're challenged is industry is building for capacity in the future, and they're looking at, well, how do I make this thing that it's going to still be relevant in 3 or 4 years? And we're also concerned about that. But I also need that piece of kit to be backwards compatible 3, 4, 5, 10 years, right? And that's sometimes not something industry. So I appreciate events like this to be able to share that perspective.
You use the personal debt, technical debt analogy. Is the way that you measure progress the same in that analogy? I look at my bank statement every month, and I look at my balances every month, and I see that I'm more or less, and I decide I've made progress or I need to bear down a little more. Is it the same, or are there other metrics that you use to determine how you're making progress in that incremental effort on technical debt?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think the first part of that question is how do we measure progress? It is really how are we, I'll keep with my analogy, if you don't mind.
Great.
Right, so years ago, someone told me about a debt snowball, right?
Yep.
You pay off your lowest credit card first and just roll that in, right?
That's right.
And so we do that very similarly, right?
Interesting.
And so, let's get this one legacy piece of technology off the network. You will hear a lot of folks talk about time division multiplexing, not something that industry still talks about, but it's something that's still prevalent in the DoD just to the age and some of the types of systems that we have. And so when we can get like a specific network component off, when we can divest of an individual card, right, we can then take that level of effort that we were investing in the sustainment of that and roll that now into modernization. And we've done that in many cases. We're able to take that and invest it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. What are the ways that you will track moving forward that you're staying on the right track in that vein to make sure that you're retiring technical debt to the greatest extent possible and then moving that investment to the modernization efforts?
Yeah. I'll tack the second part of your question first. That is a challenge in the department, right? As soon as you divest of something, right, people think, well, I can now invest somewhere else, maybe not though the right somewhere else, right? And so, when I pay off my credit card, I can invest in paying off the next debt, or I can go buy a boat.
Yep. And the boat's more fun.
It is more fun, and it's shiny and it's new, but maybe that's not the right place to invest in it. So we're really doing a capabilities-based analysis over what are the capabilities that we really want to invest in. Our metric really is the feedback we get from our customers on meeting their demand signal. And our metrics are different in the DoD. Industry measures metrics by revenue and quarterly profits, and our metrics are in terms of readiness and preparedness to be a lethal fighting force, right? And so readiness is really our measurement, and we measure that sort of two ways: operational readiness for the mission, and then the risk that we're assuming. Both the operational risk and the cybersecurity risk is a good metric for us in a lot of these cases, because along with that, the threat didn't stay stagnant either, right? And so we can use our readiness to address modern cyber threats as a metric for how are we really buying down technology debt.
Yeah. So the advantage that it sounds like you gain is what every person that I'm here talking to has said is important, and that's speed. You're injecting speed into a system, maybe not even that as a big priority, but that's a byproduct, it sounds like.
Speed and capacity.
Yeah.
Capacity, I think, is you can go fast, but you have the capacity to do a lot fast, right? And when you're an enterprise service provider like DISA is, you have to have capacity. And so if you're fixed, that capacity is fixed. And if you're spending that capacity on technologies that are less than suitable for your mission, that's capacity you're not applying somewhere else, right? And so it is speed and capacity.
How are you working with industry to make sure that they stay focused on long-term gains, long-term capacity, long-term speed gains, and not just kind of quick fixes, let's fix what's in front of us and not think about the strategic view?
So I think events like this are fantastic. It's a place where we can gather industry and government together to share that vision and that strategy. It's also as equally important for us to share our strategy, which has been pretty constant, right? Our DISA strategy, the national defense strategy will change, but the central focus of it as our adversary of China will not. But it's also equally important for us to hear from industry to help inform our own strategy, to see where the industry is progressing and going here. And I've learned a ton this week about where the future is in industry and how we maybe should rethink our strategy and how to leverage that.
Colonel Jeffrey Strauss of DISA recorded at TechNet Cyber in Baltimore last week. You can read more about shedding technical debt on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. The Navy's Enterprise Research Lab's in the spotlight on FedGov Today TV this Sunday morning at 10:30 on ABC7 in Washington and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel. The commanding officer of the NRL, Captain Jesse Black, is one of my guests. If you missed the debut of the show Sunday morning, you can watch it on demand anytime at fedgovtoday.com and on YouTube. Some of the nuts and bolts of the Pentagon's Zero Trust wins on the next FedGov Today podcast tomorrow. You can listen to every FedGov Today podcast anytime you want on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. Thanks for listening.